All right, we are going to wrap it up with kind of a summary of this class and where we go from here. So, obviously, the title of this class is Methods of Counseling, and we've been focusing a lot on the micro skills of counseling, reframing, role playing, empathy, all of those sorts of things. And I know for many of you, this has seemed like such a tedious process. There's times where you're going, when am I ever going to use this, or why do I need to practice this? But what I've learned even more throughout teaching this class, and as I've been very keenly aware of my own therapeutic practice, is that these skills that we've been learning in this class, you do use them. Now, you might not be cognitively conscious that, oh, I'm using this skill, or I'm using this skill, or I'm using this skill. But the fact of the matter is, if I'm being honest, I use a handful of these skills in every single session of every single day that I do counseling. And so while it might seem tedious, and I remember feeling like it was tedious when I was taking this class and other classes like it, they really are good skills to learn. These are skills that you will utilize for the rest of your life, both personally and professionally. And you know what? These are basic counseling skills that, regardless of your theoretical approach, these are always going to come in handy. It doesn't matter if you're practicing from a systemic approach or a narrative approach or anything in between. Empathic listening is the same in all of them, and asking questions and feedback and all of these things, regardless of your theoretical approach. You need these skills. So in saying that, the question kind of that comes up is, so where do we really go from here? We've just been through 14 weeks of class. Where do we go from here? And I just want to encourage you by saying these are skills that, as we've learned over the last 14 weeks, these can definitely be implemented into your life, both personally and professionally. Now, the more I get into counseling, the less of a difference I see between my personal and professional life. Now, of course, I have boundaries, and I don't take my cases home with me, and I'm very careful about those sorts of things. But one of the things that I feel particularly satisfied in is that if my client were to meet me in the office or on the street, they would see the same person. They would be treated the same. They would be talked to the same. They would experience the same amount of compassion or attunement or those sorts of things. It's part of who I am, and who I am does not waver personally or professionally. And so as we continue to implement these skills into our lives, my hope for you is that you would be what I call a fully integrated person. That whatever the situation is, whether you are with family, with friends, with coworkers, with people that you've just met, doing ministry, out at grocery shopping, whatever that is, that you would just have this really ingrained sense of who you are, and that every time you open your mouth or you act or anything, you would be acting or talking or emoting or sharing with people out of the highest value of who you are, and that it would be consistent from person to person. Now, of course, there are different elements or different parts of ourselves that come to light at certain times. So just like I said, my clients wouldn't see a difference between me on the street or in my office. I, of course, am not going to start counseling them on the street. That would be highly inappropriate. That would be a breach of confidentiality. At the same time, though, it's who I am is not going to change. It's just what I might talk to them about. So hopefully that makes sense. And that's something that would be considered wholeness. And if you think about it, that's really what we are called to do, is to find our identity in Christ. You think about the example of Jesus. He was consistent in every single situation that he was in. Of course, you could say, he acted or he talked differently with the Pharisees versus the tax collectors, and that might be true, but it was coming from the wholeness or the highest value of who he was. It was never inconsistent with who he was, and so that is my encouragement to you. That while different circumstances can call for greater or lesser parts of ourselves or our skills, the goal is always to act out of a centered self. That is the true self, or who God has truly created you to be, because that really is a shining example of who we are created to be, and that's quite special. So we have our normal assignments for this week, we'll kind of end there. We do have the additional final transcript, and the description for that is in last week's video or on the video posted at the beginning of class outlining the syllabus. So there's really nothing new outside of that at our group discussion board. That is as normal. And we'll just kind of keep plugging away. But before we are done, I wanted to read you one final meditation as a resource. I won't add to your list of books that you're waiting to get for Christmas anymore. I'll read that for you, and then we'll kind of close this out. So this is from, I mentioned this several times, this is from one of my favorite books called The Book of Awakening by Mark Nepo. He does daily meditations. They're absolutely wonderful. This one is from February 22nd, and it's called Opposing Voices. And and I'm not going to read the meditation. I'll just kind of read the little passage that he has. And he says, being alive is a paradox, an ongoing mix of things that on the surface don't always seem to make sense. But voicing what doesn't seem to make sense seems to help. It's like an orchestra tuning up to play together. We have no chance of discovering the fullness of our inner music if we don't let the players in our hearts and our minds and our spirits tune. Often, confusion is the tension of trying to make sense of things too soon, before enough of the inner players have learned their parts. Often, experience is the way that the heart and mind and spirit practice what they need to play. Isn't the trail of our relationships the time it takes for the heart to practice its part in the movement that we call love? Isn't the trail of our honest questions the time it takes for the mind to practice the parts in the movement that we call wisdom? Isn't the trail of our changing beliefs the time it takes for the spirit to practice its part in the movement we call God? And isn't our trail of oneness, of wholeness, those brief moments when everything comes together, isn't this the time it takes for love and wisdom and God to bring the commonplace in us alive? So I love this meditation, and as we talk about kind of that, where do we go from here, integrating it, who am I, the wholeness, that true self, that fully integrated self, I just felt like that spoke to it really well. But there's so many different parts of us waiting to be tuned, waiting to be grown, waiting to be heard. And I'm so excited and so blessed to have been part of this journey with you. So again, my deepest thanks and gratitude to each and every one of you. I'm so blessed to be able to know you guys, to be able to have spent so many times to receive times discussing with you, to have received so many emails of encouragement and questions, and it's wonderful. I love that I get to connect with y'all. It is such a privilege to be your teacher, and hopefully I've added just a little bit to your life, and hopefully a passion for other people, and a passion for counseling, and a passion for the Lord. So as we go about this final week of class, I just want you to guys to keep in the back of your mind that I'm so blessed to have been with you the last 14 weeks, and I just wish you the best of luck in wherever life takes you, and know that this has been a time of just wonderful, wonderful connection and learning, and I'm so appreciative of it. So thank you so much, and hopefully I'll see y'all in other classes, and we'll have the privilege of learning together again. Thanks so much.